7 days, ladies and gentlemen. 7 days, and I will be back in Chicago for the one, the only All In, and that will be indeed be the finale for GC Summer Bash. But right here, right now, I am indeed Nate the Effing Great here for the Game Changer. I'm being joined here by one of my most loyal co-hosts ever since day one that the Game Changer ever started. That is indeed the lovely, fantastic, and kind of messy, but for obvious reasons, the one and only VicTori Belle. How's it going?
I'm good, thanks.
Not at all because like she looks messy or anything like that, but she had to deal with quite a bit of messiness. Well, actually, we both did today. Let's just say it's one of those things where if canines were just more well behaved, we probably would have better days. Let's just put it like that. But, and with that being said, let's just go on to something that's a little more positive. Let's actually talk about something that this is going to be a reference that I am not sure that a lot of people remember. If people remember, there was a series on like I think it was either Disney Channel or Toon Disney. It was a series called Chillin' with the Villains, where they just showed a bunch of random cartoon episodes where you saw like the villains looking at their best or stuff like that. You know, they had like Darkwing Duck, they had Little Mermaid, they had a bunch of other things. So I thought it'd be kind of cool to actually look back at some of the villains from Disney and pick out some of the ones that were our favorites. Now, obviously, this is all just by our opinion. This is subjective. A lot of these obviously we had to go through a very huge, rigorous elimination deal where it's like, okay, do we want this one? Do we want this one? Like, well, probably not so much this one, probably not so this one. So we did make it down. We each have 5 here with an honorable mention that we will have before we reach our number 1. So with that being said, I think let's talk about our top 5 villains, and I think I shall take the reins on this one. Starting off with one from, actually, Toon Disney, Disney Channel, whichever one it was, I forget. But there was a TV show called Tailspin. I'm sure a lot of people might actually remember that. It was basically almost like a spin-off deal from the Jungle Book, but it only featured 3 prominent characters from it, that being Baloo, Louie, and Shere Khan, and they were actually kind of dressed up like regular people. And during this time, Baloo had to deal with a lot of different villains, a lot of different characters, one being one of my favorite villains, and makes it on this list, the one and only amazing, incredible pirate, Don Carnage. I cannot tell you how much I loved this character. He is one of those guys who is, of course, voiced by the one and only, the incredible Jim Cummings, and he just does a fantastic job of creating this character. Don Carnage is a pirate, and he basically, loots and he pillages, and he has some of the best, one-liners, or he just has some of the best dialogues. One of those villains that you could take just as an entertaining person, but also as a bit of a serious threat. I mean, the first couple of episodes that they showed, they had Don Carnage basically creating this ray gun that could basically destroy everything, and he has to find this ruby that powers it up. It's one of those things where it is kind of scary when you look at it thinking, if this was a real thing, this would kind of be rough. But you also see him for his entertainment value, and that's one of the things that made me love this guy, is because of the fact that he would just have so many entertaining moments where maybe he would just get stuck to something. He's kind of one of those comedic villains that a lot of people tend to really forget about. But again, he's one of those villains that you can't really take lightly. I mean, he's got a big giant ship called the Iron Vulture. He's got a crew of pirates working with him. He has a bunch of planes that can shoot fire. And let me just say this right now, not to really knock too much on stormtroopers, but unlike them, Don Carnage and his crew have actually had a direct hit on so many different planes during this series. So they're a pretty good shot. But like I said, a lot of the one-liners that he has just absolutely gets me. And it's because they're so bizarre. And it's like you're taking time to just say something that you could say in like a matter of like maybe 2 or 3 words. But no, he just goes into this whole entire like mini dialogue. Like he'll see something stupid and he'll just be like, "What nincompoopery is this?" Or he'll just he'll talk about a secret weapon. He'll be like, yes, 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 bring the big gun that does the loud kaboom boom. I'm just like, what is this? Why do I love this guy? He just absolutely, he's very charismatic. He's somehow very lovable. Yes, he's a fox. He's dressed up like a pirate, but it's absolutely amazing. So much of a successful character that they're actually doing a bit of a crossover with Tailspin and the new DuckTales. They have him featured in one of the new DuckTales ones. I'm like, oh, this is going to be rough. Just because of the fact it's like, I know how Don Carnage talks. Is this going to be the same guy? Or, oh, it's voiced by a different character. I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to like this. But, like I said, I can still reflect on a lot of the classic Don Carnage stuff that he did. Very entertaining and also very deadly. And, yeah, he's one of the reasons why he's number 5 on this list.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I don't know him at all. Never seen this Tailspin show, so I don't have much to say about this guy.
Well, that's what you get for growing up as a Nickelodeon girl, okay?
Yeah, Rugrats all the way. No monsters all the way. But yeah, that's good though. Pirates, pirates are always seeming to be quite evil. So I agree with you that this pirate probably deserves to be on the list. And honestly, your talk of pirates made me think of another villain that I might have to switch somebody out for. So it might be a surprise to you if I don't have the 5 villains that I started with.
Okay.
But don't worry, it's not any of your villains. I promise.
Not too worried about that.
Well, do you want me to start off?
Oh, please, by all means. What is one of your favorite villains in Disney?
I'll try to go with, how much I didn't like them, but I kind of liked them type of thing. And it's obviously not like I don't like them at all because this is our favorite villains, but I shouldn't like them because they're pretty dang evil. And since you already mentioned this guy, I'm just going to start off with him. He was the last one to make it on my list, so I'm going to call him number 5. Shere Khan, the tiger of India, in the Jungle Book. Probably not the same guy that you were talking about. He's probably not very evil in that, I'm guessing.
No, not exactly, but by all means, continue.
Yes, but Shere Khan doesn't really have any music, doesn't have anything like that would make us really fall in love with him as a character. But what he does have, and a lot of it, is revenge and seeking revenge and vengeance from all mankind. Not really having a bad take on the world, just not liking mankind. And so he will do anything to kill this young boy in the jungle, and anything as in kill other animals that are protecting him and kill everything. He's a deadly predator and a deadly villain who literally does take names and take lives, which is pretty dark for a Disney villain. And I mean, we're kind of trying to steer clear of the live actions, but it's hard to not include some of the features that happen in the live action. Like in the live action, oh my goodness, why am I going to forget his name? Oh no.
I'm looking it up.
Help! Throw me a lifeline! I know he's this beautiful black man. He was also in Thor Ragnarok. Infinity Wars, dies in the first second. But yeah, quite an evil character, and in this whole series, he's just the overwhelming shadow that is the jungle, and he respects the jungle, he respects the laws and the rules, but he wants to kill. And that's what I think is very intriguing about this villain, is that he's not necessarily bad for the jungle, but he's bad for our main character and the characters he loves. So I think that's why he's on my top 5, and why he really is number 5. He's not that entertaining when he's on screen, song-wise and memorabilia-wise. You don't see Shere Khan stuff anywhere. But it's kind of because they didn't want you to like him. And he has his reasons to protect the jungle. The man has killed his kind, and man has burned his face and hurt him. And so that's why he's doing his crazy acts. And I always enjoy when you kind of get to see, like, why the villain is the way they are. And I think that's why Shere Khan is so dangerous, is because he's just, he's a murderer, and he kills. So that's why I picked him.
I think and I do apologize for butchering the name. I think it's Idris Elba. Yeah. Idris Elba. Yep.
Aha! I got it before you said it, just because you were ready.
Yes, let the record show that VicTori Belle has became victorious at getting a faster reaction than me. But yeah, I do agree with you, and I think that also what makes Shere Khan so intimidating is when you watch the first Jungle Book, and I'm talking like the first animated version, you definitely see like the kind of mind games that he plays. I remember where, he finally gets, Mowgli, and he's basically saying, like, oh yeah, I appreciate the fact that you're, strong for one so small, and basically says, oh, I'm going to give you a fighting chance. And he just turns around and he just says, I'm going to close my eyes, count to 10. That way, it's like an advantage for him, quote unquote. And it's just one of those things where it's like, he's so cocky and he's so arrogant, but at the same time, it's one of those things where you just see him as a master of the mind games, where he's just trying to think, oh, you're going to have this advantage, but you're not. And I think they
calm in that whole thing, like always. Like whenever he's on screen, like you get the feel of what this tiger is and how. And I mean, tigers are top notch. One of the best predators in India, kills people by the hundreds every year. Like, this is not a creature that anyone who wrote the book thought to be a kind creature.
It's not a docile kitty cat, basically. It's not one of those things where you can just go up to it, pet it, and be like, oh, no repercussions. No, you try to do this. This cat's going to rip your arm off, and then just be like, oh, you got more. Yummy, yummy. Just, oh my gosh. Yeah, I do remember, I think, a couple times actually being scared of Shere Khan, and I think that the live-action one does a definitely better job of darkening that character even more.
Right,
and
with the scarring and stuff in the face.
Gosh.
Yeah, he's pretty scary in the live-action, and that's why I wanted to, obviously, he was pretty evil in the cartoon as well, but just, pulling from the live action too and getting to see him actually kill a lot of people in the live action was like, ooh, he's not cool. This is not playing around. He really wants to protect the jungle from man. And that's why, again, that's why he made the list for me, is I see where he was coming from, but as a human, I'm afraid of him. So
yeah, and I'm definitely going to be not including his appearance in the very, very poor sequel of Jungle Book 2, because that was that was something else, and that was one of those things where you kind of, I think you felt like they just watered him down majorly, but that's just my opinion. But speaking of live action, it's kind of funny you mentioned that, because this next one I have is, not only animated, but also involved with live action too, and honestly, between the two of them, they're fairly even, in all honesty. I can't really pick between the two of them, who did better. There's some that have, better quirks, some that have better characteristics, and the next one here is the one and only, the ever so strong and pompous Gaston from Beauty and the Beast. Because when you think of villains, you definitely do want to think of somebody who makes it seem like, he's definitely working with the people. He's trying to be that guy who makes it seem like, I'm the hero here. I'm not the bad guy. I'm actually the good guy. And Gaston does that so incredibly well. And I think that they even did a better job of that during the live action one. Luke Evans did an absolutely amazing job of bringing Gaston's character to life and just making him into something definitely worth watching. And I think that's probably why a lot of people definitely admire him more, because they're now looking at him and it's just kind of like, well, he fought in a war. He's basically trying to get this girl to marry her, even though she keeps saying no. And somehow he's still coming off as kind of the good guy, even though he's supposed to be the villain. Obviously, when you look at the animated version, you definitely could tell that he was not one of those guys who's just, he's not always that likable. I mean, you definitely can tell during, I think, quite a few scenes. Like one scene, he's just talking about books and how can you be interested in reading these books? There's no pictures on them. Like, really, dude? There's more to books than just pictures, damn it. And then, like, about a day later, he sets up for his quote-unquote wedding. He's that confident that Belle's going to say yes and that he's going to have his bride. And it's like, wow, this guy just, wow. He really does something crazy. And then he seems like, oh, he's going to help Maurice. And then find out in both versions, like, nope, he's just going to leave him basically to die. And then it evolves into the big riot deal where both of them go in and they are trying to conquer the beast, and that doesn't work out too well because obviously both have the quote-unquote like horrendous deaths. The first one you definitely do see, well, actually no, they're both about the same. I can't really complain too much about that. Gaston is indeed one of the most pompous, arrogant villains on here, and again, it's because of the fact that he's playing with the crowd. He's basically trying to win them over. He'll tell a white lie and somehow it works. It somehow works with him. He's almost like a highly admired like politician where he could literally just lie his way through anything. Be like, oh, I never was with this girl, or oh, I never did this, oh, I never did. I do also appreciate, I think, with the live action one, he doesn't really, I think, lie too much. Maybe like once or twice throughout the movie, but he's kind of one of those guys who just, he's actually like pretty honest with that. Like during the song Gaston, he actually admits that, he's like, oh yeah, when I'm hunting my prey, I basically sneak up to them, I shoot them in the liver, and then I cut them, and what was it? LeFou has that line of, is that fair? And he says, I don't care. Whatever it takes to be, the alpha male, really. So they both have their advantages, basically. But Gaston definitely deserves his place on this list.
Oh yeah, totally agree with you. And like you were kind of saying, he's such like a personality. Like people really, really do like Gaston. Like you see people at cons like dress up as Gaston and everything, and like when a villain has that personality that can attract people. I mean, he has charisma up the wazoo, and that's what makes him super dangerous. Like you were saying, a politician that is like evil, like has an agenda, and can use people to get on his side. That's super dangerous. That's super scary. Like these townspeople, he even like says in one of his songs, he's like, yeah, they'll follow me no matter what I say. Like they're so stupid. Like, and you're like, whoa, and like that wasn't in the cartoon. Which one did you like better, like the cartoon or the live action? Like Gaston, villain wise.
Right. Like I said, it's hard to pick between the two of them because they're so evenly matched up. But if I had the choice to pick which one was the better one, I think I might have to give the live reaction one the point on this one, just because of the fact that yes, he can lie every now and then, but he also is one of those guys who basically he's seemingly very honest with what his intentions are, and sometimes he can be a little too aggressive, but then at the same time he can be very conniving. He's one of those guys that, like I said, Luke Evans does a tremendous job of portraying him, and I think compared to the cartoon one, like I said, the live action one I think does just a tad bit better.
I agree. I think that the live action one was really fun, just because obviously these live action ones give us so much more than the cartoon did at the beginning, and I don't know if it's because it's a longer movie or just because they have to give us more. Otherwise, why are we watching this? We're not going to watch the exact same movie over and over again. We need something. And they're basically saying, like, hey, look at what Gaston went through. He was a colonel or general in the war, and he's like praised by all, and like they give us just so much more with him and his like LeFou, like how much people love him. Like he's even having men fall in love with him. Like that's pretty hardcore, especially back in the time. Like, I mean, what is France back in the time? Who cares? It wasn't really that intense. But yeah, I just think it's really interesting seeing somebody being able to make the masses go against what is, what's the right word? It's like being actual humanized or something like. I'm getting the wrong terminology, but it's basically like going against people's own morals and morality of what is right. They literally know who these people are, who Emma Watson, who Belle and her father are, and they're gonna go against them because this guy just decides to be like, nah, actually, we don't mess with them no more. In fact, we're gonna go kill this beast that you guys don't even know exists, but we're gonna do it because I say so. And he's able to use people's fear against them and make them come and hurt other people. When we realize when they get to the castle, like, they don't want to do it. They're like scared. They're like, I don't think we want to do this. Why are we here? And it's because Gaston is that type of villain.
Definitely do agree with that. All right, so we go from Gaston to your next pick for favorite villain, and who have you got next on your list?
Well, I'm gonna throw in one of my favorite costuming characters from Sleeping Beauty. I have Maleficent. And like we were talking about, we're kind of talking about both movies they're in, since they, like, most of these characters so far have had 2 movies, which just happens to be that way. So Maleficent, I fell in love with Maleficent in the new movie, the Angelina Jolie movie. Obviously, she's a little less evil in the end, but if we go by what she did in the cartoon, I mean, she literally turns herself into a dragon. She's a sorceress. Like, this lady is crazy powerful, and the fact that this prince defeats her is ridiculous. I think it's Disney at its best saying good will always triumph over evil, when it's like, no, probably not. Let's be real. She's got a sword. Oh, she's a dragon. Don't mess with dragons. Not when I'm around.
No.
But yeah, I think Maleficent, getting to see a little bit of her backstory as like a fairy, powerful fairy sorceress, and seeing what she did and why she is so scorned as a character, because the king actually hurt her, like, took her wings, took her emotions and feelings, and just spit on it. Literally just was like, I don't care. I don't care about you. I don't care that you're a powerful witch, whatever. And then he goes and has a daughter and has this party and is pretty much gloating in her face. And so she has to come and be like, all right, you're just another human on my books, so I'm going to punish you by punishing what you love, which I think is kind of very evil, is punishing somebody who did not harm you in order to hurt another person. And if you're really thinking about it, is it really going to hurt that selfish person as much as you think it is? And to the king in the Maleficent movies, in both movies, he was very hurt by the fact that his daughter is cursed, and he's trying to protect her and protect all the land and gather up all the spinning needles. He's kind of goes crazy with it. So her plan worked, but inevitably it is going to hurt Aurora, who is a innocent bystander. And I think that's where the live action kind of tries to redo her evil deed by like being like, okay, she gets to know this young girl. She realizes this young girl has nothing to do with what the king and her had. So she's going to forgive her and basically save her from her own curse. And it ends up, in Maleficent, she ends up having love for this young girl, almost being like her adopted mother type of thing, which was a little odd. We all we flirt with the idea of this is kind of dumb, but it really humanizes the villain, and if you'll see that I consistently like having two sides to a story, so that you as the person either reading the story or you as the audience member have something to think about, versus that person is pure evil and that's why we hate them and we hate them. I like when any story gives you an idea of, well, what if this happened to you? What would you do? And I think that makes me like the character so much more. And she's just, she's just a gorgeous villain too. I really enjoyed how they portrayed her stoicness, and her looks, and all of her different looks were so amazing. So I really appreciated the new and improved Maleficent. And you gotta like how she turned into a dragon and stuff back in the day. I mean, that was really cool. I was a little disappointed that she used a minion to do all that. I thought it was really cool that she's just no, look at how powerful I am.
I think you might have hit the nail on the head, where I would make the same point that regardless of which Maleficent we're talking about, whether it's the Sleeping Beauty one or the Maleficent movie one, it seems like Maleficent is the standout character and one of the best parts of the film. I mean, when you look at the first film, obviously we know what happens there. Basically, it's just a boring, bland, personality for Aurora Rose, and then you had, of course, the prince, who's not exactly that, amazing, really. But Maleficent is definitely one of those characters who just really, just creates something more to the story, where there's a part of you that's kind of rooting for her, where it's we kind of want her to win, even though she basically has, Prince Philip locked up in chains, and she's just saying yeah, I'm basically going to hold you in this cell for 80 some odd years or something like that, and you're going to whisk away out of the castle. And they show that deal where he's basically just this old decrepit man, and he's on an older horse, and he's just riding off, and she basically just spits in the face of the idea of it's true love's first kiss, and true love conquers all, and she just does that maniacal laugh of just being the evil villain that she is. Now, obviously, with the second one, like you said, it gives a different story to it. I'm kind of wishing, looking back at it, they kind of gave maybe a little more, maybe tie into the original a little more than just go off their own way. Maybe if I were to rewrite it, I would probably still have, she still seems good at first, and then, of course, the king is the one who just, rips off the wings. We still see that. But, maybe she does go evil. Maybe she does go basically completely rogue, but she doesn't do the whole emotion deal for Aurora. Maybe it's one of those things where she doesn't really feel emotions until she gets her wings back, and she kind of realizes, what have I done, or something like that. Maybe that would have been a better story, but maybe that's also a little too far-fetched. Still, they did quite a bit of an interesting job with Maleficent. I think that they still are going to create something special with her. I mean, it's obviously affected a lot of people in a positive sense. I mean, so many times, seen you especially going to conventions, dressed up as Maleficent. It's well, it's still a positive effect, so I can't really knock on this movie too hard, because if I could, if it wasn't having the success that it had, but because people are dressing up like Maleficent and they're saying oh, Maleficent is so awesome, it's one of those things where it's well, I guess it's kind of doing its job and basically giving it a different limelight. So, still one of the best villains, though. I mean, back in the day, like you said, still one of the best, still one of probably the most powerful. And yes, I do agree, Minion should not have been turned into a dragon. It should have been her. That would have been the most badass thing of that entire movie. But
yeah, the Crow was interesting. I didn't really understand that character and why he was there. I almost thought it was supposed to be like another romantic moment, but I don't think it ever got there. So I was very confused of why the Crow. I think the Crow was trying to be no, she's good. Listen to me. Almost like a conscience, maybe? Maybe he was supposed to be her conscience, but...
the Blackbird Jiminy Cricket is indeed the Crow.
Yes, yeah, he was interesting, but, I was, again, He could have just been a crow. It's fine.
I would have much rather preferred the crow, but all right. So the next one that I've got on my list is going to be an interesting one because I think this is going to be one of those names that a lot of people are going to be like, "What? This was a thing?" You're going to have to go back to probably I think early to mid '90s, and it first started off as a movie where a lot of people are just kind of like, well, this movie's okay, but nothing too spectacular. Then they had a sequel where it was just like, oh my god, this is one of the best sequels of all time. And that being Rescuers Down Under. And the villain, of course, as a lot of people might have guessed, is Percival C. McLeach. This is a guy who literally is embodiment of what a true villain needed to be. He definitely has kind of this softer tone whenever he's trying to play it off good, like he's done nothing wrong. But when you see him, trying to get what he wants, he gets more angry, he gets more aggressive, and literally, again, boils down to the fact that he's a master of mind games. He basically made it see him like, oh, it's all over, boy. Your bird's dead. But, oh, what will happen to the eggs if no bird's going to be there? And, of course, he uses that to his advantage because he realizes that this kid knows where the eggs are going to be. Because this is a guy who is literally a poacher, a bounty hunter. He already killed a male golden eagle, which, if you've seen the first bits of Rescuers Down Under, you'll know it is one of the best openings of any movie. Yeah. Absolutely amazing, breathtaking views. And then you get introduced to this guy who you could tell right off the bat, it's like, he's either going to be creepy or he's either going to be evil. Spoiler alert, he's both! He's one of those guys who literally kidnaps a kid, and he's basically doing these weird kind of fear tactics, I wouldn't even say torture, fear tactics, to basically get this kid to reveal, hey, where's the mama? Where's the nest? Where's everything? And give resiliency to the kid where he's basically saying, no, it's not going to happen. And he knows that he can't kill him. He's like, I can't kill this kid until I know where they are. Just damn it. And when he finally finds out, he realizes, you know what? I got what I needed. The eggs are gone. I got the mama bird. And literally he's saying, you know what? I can kill this kid now. And it comes to one of those things where, unlike most villains, he does come very, very close to killing this kid. It's one of the more darker movies that Disney's put out, and so many people are just amazed that they go down this route. Again, it's one of those things where it's like, this guy is, I hate him, but at the same time he's got that weird charisma. He's just very, very sadistic, but also so somehow likable. I don't know why. Maybe I'm just a sick, twisted human being. But it's just one of those things that I watch this guy and think yes, this is what a Disney villain needs to be. Twisted. He needs to be smart. He needs to have everything going for him. And to be honest, he has one of the most, kind of dark deaths that you can see as for a Disney villain. I mean, Maleficent getting, stabbed in the heart by a sword, that's one thing. For him, it's literally one of those things where he basically is sent down a waterfall, and of course, basically people have, assumed that, well, this is a dark movie, so more than likely he's dead. Because if it was happening in the first Rescuers, it was so bright and colorful, unfortunately, that it was kind of one of those things where it was kind of fluffed up, where it's like, oh, there's no way that they would kill off a villain. No, in Rescuers Down Under, it was literally one of those things where it's like life or death, basically. Either the person lived or they died. And it was one of those things where you see him just screaming, no, down a waterfall, and the music just plays until it just ends on, a complete, note.
Yeah. The crocodiles in there, and he was, trying to bat him away. I'm like, saltwater crocs in Australia. You dead.
And he felt that he won. He was just, bragging. He's like, yeah, I whooped ya. And then, of course, there's his, I will mention this, he probably has one of the most comedic psychics I've ever seen, but also probably one of the most deadliest, and that is a salamander by the name of Joanna.
Yeah.
Dear Lord.
I thought she was like a Komodo dragon or something.
Or maybe she was.
She's a big lizard.
Yeah. The big lizard loves to eat eggs.
She is funny.
And literally just that moment where she just looking off at him, and she just the little wave of bye. Because it's like she knows, yep, you're dead, bye-bye. And I think that's where people start beginning to realize, oh, he's really dead. He's gone. So, yeah, Percival C. McLeach definitely deserves a spot on this list. And also one of the most underrated villains. Because a lot of people definitely do forget that Rescuers Down Under was a thing. And they also have to bear in mind that it's one of the best told stories, but also has one of the best villains.
Oh, yeah. And I'm just going to throw in an honorable mention of mine because he really kind of goes in with what your character is and makes me think of how evil Disney portrays these poachers.
All right.
I need to throw in my honorable mention of Clayton from Tarzan.
Ooh.
And kind of like you were saying, a reason why it's just Disney goes dark with these characters. Like they enjoy to show poachers dead on the screen. And Clayton, I think, was the first time I remember, like, obviously, Rescuers Down Under, they showed what happened, but they didn't really show him dead. And Tarzan is the first time I think Disney decides to show someone dead. And, like, they show his body hanging by the neck, just swinging back and forth in that, the shadow figure. And, like, that's, like, the first time I think I've ever seen Disney show a dead body. And, I mean, yes, it's a shadow of a dead body, so they were flirting with it. But they show him. And Tarzan even, like, the reaction of Tarzan, you just know, like, he's like, ooh, like, that's not okay to see. That's not okay to see. But, yeah, that's another character that I feel they kind of portray poachers really, really negatively, which is okay because they're poachers. They're assholes who are who are killing animals that are endangered and who don't deserve to die in that sense. And he was trying to kill an endangered golden eagle and the eggs of the golden eagle. Like, who are you? Like, there's nothing you can get from the eggs. Like, there's no feathers yet. Like, I don't get it. And so, like, Clayton wanted to kill, like, baby gorillas. Okay. All right. That doesn't... No. Like, what? These characters are just so evil, and I just wanted to throw... I know, like, yours definitely has a place there, but I probably should have put Clayton on my list, and I didn't think of him, like, off the bat. But, like, he's bad. These guys were, like, bad. Just because they tried to gain trust, like how you said, like, your guy. Like, manipulating the kid. And, manipulating a jungle man who doesn't know anything.
I think there's definitely a lot of comparisons we can make to Clayton and McLeach, where, you know, like I said with McLeach, he's definitely very calm, but then when he gets angry, he definitely gets more aggressive. Same thing with Clayton. He tries to be like super dignified, and then when he starts getting angry, you definitely do see that darker side of him just basically come out. And it's bizarrely wonderful how they do that, how they can go from just being like classy and top notch, you know, just completely calm, to just in the blink of an eye just go completely berserk. So that's a really good honorable mention, though. That is really good.
Thank you. I just wanted to throw... he goes so well with your character. Like, they... Obviously, one's from Australia, one's from England, so... one's probably a little worse. Yours is probably worse if he's from Australia. Kidding, I don't really know.
Let's call it a wash for now.
But I liked the pick because, you kind of forget about how bad that guy was.
All right, so I think the ball's in your court. Who do you got for us next?
I'll do another one that is a little more known, and a lot of people love this character. I loved this character. Love his songs. Love everything that he does, except he's also evil. I'm going to choose Scar from The Lion King. Plotting against your own family to murder your brother in order to get power, like, that's pretty dang evil. Like, that's pretty much as bad as it gets. I'm going to kill my own brother just to gain power, and then I'm going to manipulate his son about this, too. Why not? Like, whoa. All right, dude. And, like, he literally, like, I love the song Be Prepared, where he I mean, he just plots and plots and plots in this song, and it's great. And like I can like sing every line. He's like, trying to get the hyenas on his side and being like, they're stupid and unspeakably lame, and I just don't like them. But hey, I can use them. We got an army of hyenas. They're pathetic and stupid, but I can use them. So let's do that. And like just telling him, yes, you'll never go hungry again because I'll be there and I'll feed you. I'll let you eat all the animals you want. They're like, oh man, yeah, sweet, Scar's the best. And then like he's like, yes, but you won't get anything without me, and don't you forget it. And you're like, oh, whoa, like the song was really nice, but you just started screaming in the song. Can you stop screaming? But like he's just so great, and I mean, I don't think there's anyone in the history of a Disney fan that doesn't remember like Scar and Mufasa's death scene, and how Scar just like grabs him, claw on claw, looking like he's going to help him up, and the pain that Mufasa gets when he grabs him is like, whoa, like a little too intense, man, just pull him up, and whispering in his ear, like, long live the king, or what was it?
Yep.
I forget what.
Yeah, that was it. He basically just has him by the arm, and and like you said, it's that line, oh my gosh, where literally, that's when you know he is the real deal, where he just goes, long live the king. And he just lets him go. He's just like, yep, I did it.
Kills his brother. I mean, I guess that's another dead body, too, but if it's an animal, you kind of don't really get the same sense as a human dead. But yeah, and then he basically blackmails Simba into thinking that he did this to his dad. And so Simba leaves, and he becomes the dictator of Pride Rock for a good, at least like maybe 2 or 3 years. He wins. And then, in the end, they have to go find Simba to go kill him. But, I mean, that's pretty awful. And I guess and we're going to get a live action of this. I mean, I'm interested to see what they do, because they're calling it live action, even though it's just going to be a bunch of CGI'd lions. But I was kind of interested in, there were a lot of sequels of Lion King, and even though most of them were pretty stupid, I did enjoy, as a kid, I enjoyed Lion King too, like where Simba has a daughter, and it shows that Scar had had sons too. He sired some people, and like he had a following, and it was interesting to see that, like, oh, he's still affected by what his father did. And Scar, like, affected everyone in the time. Like, anyone who was linked to Scar at all was an outcast and not allowed food, not allowed nice land or property. So it was just interesting to see just how evil and how much that the whole society just felt Scar was awful. So, I mean, everybody knows Scar is one of those characters that you're ready to sing with, and he has some iconic lines that everybody enjoys, but I do think in the long run, I mean, he's a murderer. He kills. We get to see his kills on screen. We get to see his deception, and I think the biggest thing about Scar that makes him on this list is because he does it to his family and his family members, which I couldn't even imagine. Like, it never showed what Mufasa did. And I think maybe that's what we're going to get in the live action, is maybe Mufasa does something that makes Scar this crazy. But at least in what we know, is Scar literally just wants power. And Mufasa has it. But Mufasa seems like he's pretty like chill, pretty cool about everything. So, like, he's like, yeah, he's my brother, I love him. And like, we're like, uh-oh. He don't love you.
Yeah, and I think also what probably helps is the fact that he was voiced by the one and only Jeremy Irons, who definitely does find a way to really make him into this guy who can not only be very... again, he's one of those guys who makes it seem like, he can just lie his way out of anything. And also, one of the pivotal scenes is where they almost had like a reenactment of, Mufasa's death. There's Simba on the ledge, and, Scar's, of course, just thinking like, why does this seem so familiar? Let's see here. Oh, that's right, because this is basically what happened to your father before he died. And he makes the mistake. He basically does that deal where he just says, here's my little secret. I killed Mufasa. And of course, everything just goes into place, and Simba's just like, oh, now I know that you're going to die. You may be my uncle, but you killed my dad. You are going to die, my good sir.
Yep. Which, that's a pretty good extra fight right there. Because I thought I killed my dad all these years, and I didn't. What?
And there even just comes a point where, he has that option to basically kill Scar, and Simba just says, I'm not like you, so you know what? I'm just going to tell you right now, just leave this area, never come back, never return. And, it wasn't until he basically realized, well, I have to defend myself. Okay, I'm just going to launch him into a nice pit, and who would be the ones that would greet him? Why, not only his quote-unquote friends, the hyenas, who basically just hear everything he has to say, because he opens his big mouth, and the hyenas are just like, yeah, you're basically our meal next, so bye-bye, yum-yum. So I'm going to take a page out of your book, and I'm actually going to tie in my honorable mention with this, because it does indeed kind of deal with family.
Nice.
And that's putting in Lady Tremaine in there. For a lot of people that don't know the name, this is basically the evil stepmother from Cinderella. And I'm more basing it on the animated one more than the live-action one. The live-action one had the quirks, but let's face it, the animated one basically had this woman who had a death glare to where, as soon as she knew what was up, everything clicked, and just how they animated it so well. I mean, I still look at this point where she, where her eyes just kind of squint a bit, and it's almost like a eclipse just covers her face. It's just one of those things where like, oh dear Lord, this is not a good thing. And she's a manipulator. That's the bottom line, because she married married Cinderella's father, and then after Cinderella's father died, she basically took over and basically made it seem like, well, now you have to serve us. Now you have to work for us. And obviously, Cinderella knew that, her daughters were the favorites, and she was just kind of like the leftover, and that was just always the sad part. And one of the things that definitely stands out was that, throughout the animated version, she definitely stayed strong. Cinderella stayed strong throughout everything until the ripping of the dress scene. That's where she finally was just like, nothing can go wrong, nothing can go wrong. This happens. My life is basically just over. And I think that's also one of the issues that a lot of people had with the live-action one, was that she broke down too easily, too early, where it could have built up better in the later one, but that's getting a little too off topic. With Lady Tremaine, she's just one of those characters that, again, embodies what a villain is. She's a bit of a sociopath. She is a manipulator, and just every single time that you see like she's going to win, she always has like this little smirk on her face where she just like, yeah, I win. Yeah, things are going my way. Yeah, my life is better now. And best case example was during the was during the glass slipper scene where she literally trips the guy who has the glass slipper. It breaks, and the assistant, he's just freaking out. He's like, no, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? And all she's doing, she's just smiling. She's like, that's it. There's no way that there's any proof that she's the one. Until about 10, 15 seconds later, then we see Cinderella make the big reveal, and she has, the first time ever, she has that face of just like, what? And it's like, yep, you lose, lady. And then we see more a bit of a development in her character of how manipulative she can be, and skipping over Cinderella 2, because Cinderella 3, A Twist in Time, you definitely do see the kind of ruthless steel where she will go through anything to make sure that she gets what she wants. And she wants to have the power. She wants to be famous. She wants to be well known, and everything else in between. And just absolutely wonderful how that movie works out. It, again, is one of those movies that's actually darker than a lot of people expected. And there's some people that are just kind of like, they did that with the Cinderella movie? This is new. Did not expect that to happen, but it's just one of those things where it's like, well, this is good. And again, it showcases basically Lady Tremaine basically being at her best, and that is being evil. So, honorable mention for her, but there is a couple other people that definitely are a bit higher up, and that relates to my number 2, being the one and only, the ever so powerful Jafar from Aladdin. This is a guy that I think was probably one of my all-time favorite villains, except for number 1, because of the fact that, again, he's just an all-powerful being. He can find a way to, manipulate minds, not only with his words, but also with his staff, because he can hypnotize people, because, let's face it, if Kaa can do that in the Jungle Book, then let's have Jafar do it, but let's have it be like a mind control deal. Let's just step it up a notch, why don't we? Okay. And then the fact of the matter is, he's trying to gain control of a kingdom. He wants to be the Sultan of Agrabah. He wants to be this all-powerful being. And, basically, he seems like he's one of those guys who always has a backup plan, even if his main plan fails. Like, when he is trying to get the lamp, he realizes, well, the lamp's gone. What am I going to have to do now? You know what? I'm going to marry the princess, and then I'm going to do away with her and her daddy once I get the throne. And then after that doesn't work, it's like, oh, hey, look, I got the lamp. I can be the Sultan now. This is not working. You're not going to bow to me? Okay, I'm going to be an all-powerful sorcerer. Wait a minute. Sorcerers are basically second none to genies. So he wishes himself to be a genie, which obviously turns out to be one of the worst things that he could do. And one of the lesser sequels that we would like to kind of forget. But that's, again, a different deal. But again, yeah, Jafar is one of those guys who just absolutely stands out as one of the most powerful, but also one of the most evil villains. Again, he's very smart. He knows how to make a plan. He knows how to make a backup. And he always finds a way to make things just absolutely work. And plus, when you hear his laugh, there's some part of you that's annoyed by it, but then when you hear it, it's just kind of like, oh boy, we may be in trouble. We may be just absolutely boned. Yep, we're done. I'm going to a different country now. Bye-bye. So, yeah, loved Jafar, loved everything that he did, and definitely one of my favorite villains on this list.
Well, yeah, Jafar definitely, he's amazing. He's a classic powerhouse, and that's kind of, I wanted him on my list too, but like I said, I had to trade out some things, and I'm glad you have him on your list. He was on my list at first because he is, him and Maleficent to me are two of the most powerful Disney villains that have ever reigned. Like, one, they have magic or sorcery of some sort, and you really can't contain what that means, and people can't really defeat that, especially the people that are the heroes. They have nothing. Like, Aladdin has a genie and knowledge and trickery, and so he was able, to manipulate the situation. And, I mean, we know that, I guess, a prince with a sword can defeat a sorceress. I don't know. I'm sorry, I hate that.
Back to that status quo again. This whole entire thing just comes full circle. Everything works out perfectly until a prince has a sword, and then it's like, damn it.
Oh, no, he's riding his white steed.
I kind of want that to be like a troll during like the live action Aladdin, because we know that's going to happen, to where it's one of those things where Jafar is just like, oh no, he has a sword. Oh wait, I'm a giant snake. He just bites it in half. It's like,
right. Huh. Because like that's, if you do think about it, like Jafar and Maleficent are very comparable villains, and that's kind of why they were both on my list, and that's why I was kind of like, okay, if I have to remove one of them, I have to pick Jafar, just because, one, there's really not many female villains that will make the list, or I don't have any, besides Maleficent. There are evil stuff, Lady Tremaine, obviously, and I just wanted to note about Lady Tremaine is, I think it was very interesting how a whole terminology is based on this woman and its stepmother, and people have negative connotations to the word and the phrase of stepmother, all because of her. And it probably will never change. And people are trying to change it, but my sister just got married. She is a stepmom, and they don't want to call her that because she doesn't want any negativity towards the fact that she is a stepmom. And I think that's hilarious and ridiculous that one character in Disney has ruined that terminology for everyone across time. That's when you know, like, she's an epic villain. Like, stepmom is always going to be, you always think of Cinderella and that situation when you hear stepmom. I always do. So that sucks. But like you were saying, Jafar is just so OP, so overpowered that, like, it's annoying that he loses. We want him to lose, but you cannot believe, like, he changes himself into a snake. He's a giant, crazy snake. He basically kills Jasmine by putting her in a sand thing. And then he's like, why not? And Aladdin tricks him by saying, like, I want you to be a genie. Oh, no, my genie's more powerful. And, Robin Williams is like, shut up, Al. Shut up. I'm not more powerful than I'm shut up. And then he's like, no, you can't beat an all-powerful genie. He's like, sure, I'll be a genie too. And then he gets the chains, and they don't really kill him. He's still around. Like, he's a genie. So, they obviously, put his lamp away and stuff, but still, anytime I would feel like he's not done. They did not kill him. He's not done. So, I think that's another reason why he should be higher on the list. You put him high on the list, because they never got around to killing him. You can't. He's so powerful that they have to hide his lamp away.
Yeah, pretty much. And honestly, it's going to be interesting to see what they kind of do with the live-action deal. Are they going to do the same thing as the Disney version? Maybe, but maybe not. You just never know. Although, like I said, if we have a deal where he basically is just like, oh no, Aladdin has a sword, he just grabs it and munches on it. Like I said, I'll literally say, like, this is, like, the best live-action deal ever. I don't care if Will Smith sucks as the genie, but just if I were just to see...
The genie?
That's apparently what I've been hearing. Well, actually, it's confirmed now, so...
Really?
It'll be interesting. It definitely a step up above Shaquille O'Neal. Sorry, Shaq, but that was bad. That's bad.
He's supposed to be. He was a joke genie, like Shazam, right? Wasn't it Shazam or something?
Shazam, Kazam. It was something along those weird lines.
It was supposed to be a goofy movie, and Shaq is hilarious. I love that guy.
All right, so we are up to your number 2, I believe.
I think it's my number 3, actually.
No,
number 2. You're right. Sorry.
I was about to say, did we miss... God, am I talking that much that we skipped your number 3? Damn. All right. Because I was about to say it's 2, 1, and then 1 again. So, yeah. So, what is your number 2?
I'm going to use my pirate, the new guy, as my number 2. Because of the same thing of manipulation and being just like, how could you? I have Long John Silver from Treasure Planet. He was the guy, he's a cyborg pirate who also has the little morph guy, which is so cute, Morph. Have you seen Treasure Planet?
I have seen Treasure Planet.
Yeah, so you know who I'm talking about.
I do, as a matter of fact.
Yeah. So his name is Long John Silver, which I thought was funny. I never knew that. So he basically persuades and kind of adopts Jim Hawkins, like this young kid who's going on this journey to find, Treasure Planet, which is, his dad and everybody doesn't believe exists, and he wants to go find it, and it's crazy adventure through space with space pirates. It's such a cool movie. I think it's really underrated. It has some of the best music. I love the character of Jim Hawkins. He makes you just feel for this poor kid. Like, at the beginning, you're just like, oh, his daddy doesn't love him, and all he wants to do is be with his dad and love his dad. And so here comes along, this pirate captain who allows Jim to be on his boat, and he sees that Jim is broken, is a kid that's broken who doesn't really know much. He never had a dad. And so Long John Silver kind of adopts him and helps him out. He's like the cook, and he's like showing him how to do things, showing him how to be in place. And Jim literally starts like having daddy moments with him and wants to make him proud, wants to just please this guy and trusts him, gives all of his trust in Long John Silver. And sure enough, he's a villain. He wants to take the map, and basically he's been manipulating Jim the whole time. And you see it. You see the betrayal and the tragedy that goes through Jim about, like, oh my gosh, like, this guy used me. And it's just so sad. Like, I literally get super sad during this moment. And even the villain, Long John Silver, gets sad, which is interesting. I don't think you usually get that out of the villain. You don't see the emotion. But he's supposed to kill Jim, and he doesn't. Because he's like, okay, we don't need to kill him. But, like, all the pirates want him dead. And instead, he leaves him be, lets him be, and it bites him in the ass in the end. And Jim does have to end it. I don't really remember how he dies. Do you remember how Long John Silver dies?
I think it's kind of one of those same situations where
he defends Jim a little bit, and then he ends up dying.
I don't think he ends up dying. I think it's one of those. I think it's kind of like what they've been doing with the story, and they did that from Up at Treasure Island and a couple other ones where he basically gets his own boat and he's basically sailing off, and they have this kind of heartfelt goodbye, and that's kind of it. It's like that's the last they'll ever see of each other. Because when you said Long John Silver, and as soon as you said treasure, I'm like, oh my god! If you choose Tim Curry from Muppet Treasure Island, I will literally be like, oh my god, I love my co-host. I love my co-host. But you said Treasure Planet. It's like, oh, that Long John Silver. Okay, that I can understand. That one definitely is a little bit ranked higher, I think, than Muppet Treasure Island. No disrespect to Tim Curry. I love Tim Curry. Still one of my favorite actors of all time.
He does an amazing job in the Muppets, but I don't really, and I know the Muppets are Disney, but like I don't like to always. I'm like, all the Muppet movies for me. I was never a Muppet fan, but yeah, I think it's the fact that he manipulates the hero so hardcore in this one that it causes feelings for the audience, and it caused a lot of feelings for both characters, and you're just like, wow. And he does end up coming back and trying to help, but I mean, what an ass. Like, what an asshole. He knows how to manipulate this kid, and he does. And I mean, all the pirates on there are really going against Jim, and going against Jim, the captain, and the first mate, Mr. Arrow, and Mr. Arrow ends up dying because they kill him. Like, they're like, we don't need any of you guys. And they try to kill the captain too, but we know how this goes. And eventually, like, they succeed, but it is one of those movies that a lot of younger kids don't like it, I don't think, because it is a little deeper than most of the fun animal creatures that Disney has. And I think that it's very, like, people don't really rank it in these Disney movies that we all have. But I do think it has a great story, great animation. It came out during the time of Atlantis and all that, and I think they had this animation style that just wasn't appealing to kids, but it was appealing to adults. A lot of adults enjoy those movies, and I think when you rewatch them, you're like, oh, this is why I didn't like this as a kid. Like, this guy does not love his son. Like, he leaves him. You're like, it's dark and it's sad. It's very sad, and I think that's why I really enjoyed the character of Long John Silver being a villain that he is, because like he really does show some compassion and empathy to Jim while he's also manipulating the crap out of him. So that's why he's higher on my list than I think other people would believe he should be, but he earned it because I think the most dangerous thing is, having trust in people and having trust in the villain. And Jim literally gave all of his trust and gave the map basically away to this guy because he thought, like, he's basically my father. He even, like, calls him that at one point. And then he's like, oh, shit, like, oh, my bad. And the guy's like, oh, shit, I'm about to break his heart. So, yeah, I think that's trust. The trust that Jim gives is more trust than I feel like any other Disney heroine or hero gave to the villain. So that's why he's that high.
Awesome. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think that Treasure Planet was like higher up on my list because a lot of people will definitely know it's basically Treasure Island, but futuristic. But yeah. I think that, like you said, the story of Long John Silver having that deal where he's slowly doing the manipulation, but then he realizes maybe there's actually like this connection that's building up here. But then, of course, there's that realization that, oh crap, I'm gonna have to break this kid's heart. So, damn it.
I have a job to do, but this sucks. I kind of like this kid, and I'm about to hurt him. And you saw it, and that was the cool thing. It's like you did see that he wasn't that bad of a guy, but he did it. So, yeah, you're kind of a dick.
Priorities, and his priorities were just not in the right place. But speaking of priorities, we have finally reached our number one favorite villains in Disney. So, with that being said, my number one favorite villain in all of Disney, and this is one of those things where it is very hard for me to choose against this one. That is indeed from the Great Mouse Detective, Professor Ratigan, voiced by the late great Vincent Price. Do I need to say anything more besides that? It's Vincent Price in a Disney movie, and he plays the role of Ratigan so well. Obviously, for a lot of people that don't know, basically this is Disney's version of Sherlock Holmes, and it is indeed a dark animated movie, but it's done absolutely so well. And for Ratigan's story, he basically is just planning to take over the entire kingdom in London, and he basically kidnaps a toy maker to create this replica of what the Queen is supposed to be like. And then when he finds out, well, you're not exactly getting the job done, what can I do? Oh, I'm gonna kidnap your daughter, bring him here. Oh, if you don't get this job done, then you are going to watch your daughter basically die. And it's one of those things where it's like, why? I hate this person. Why do I like him? Because of the fact, again, it's Vincent Price. He brings a charm. He brings a charisma to Ratigan that can definitely be hard to match. You just look at this guy and you know that he is absolutely a criminal mastermind. He is trying to be like so classy with everything that he does. And again, it goes back to, I think, the Disney status quo when it comes to a lot of villains. They try to be nice and calm, nice, but then when they get mad, it's just like, you done effed up, son. And for Ratigan, when you F up with him, then you basically have to deal with his cat. Yes, you heard me right. A rat has a cat for a pet. Literally, he pulls out this tiny little bell, and as soon as he dings it, here comes this giant fluff mountain of a cat. Now, obviously for us, it would just be like a nice little fluffy snowball. But for a rat, it just looks absolutely gargantuan. And they even have a scene where they just see this mouse actually being devoured by the cat. Not really like they actually show it, but they have like this, almost like a silhouette of what basically happens. It is one of the most scarring scenes when you're a kid, but it's also one of those things where as an adult you're like, okay, we do not see this from Disney. You know what we also don't see? A fight at a clock tower. Literally, this is where Ratigan just absolutely loses all of his cool, all of his just nice, calm demeanor, and he just busts out being a rat. You see him just having, claws out. He's scratching Basil, Baker Street. He is just basically almost trained to murder this man. And one of the things that's really amazing is that you would think that he would just be like, bloody and gush. They really don't show that. They just show him getting scratched up and getting just absolutely destroyed. And every single time that Ratigan thinks that he's won, he always has that classic line of just, I've won! And he's laughing. He's thinking, I've done it. I've done everything. And again, it's Vincent Price. He brings the charm. He makes Ratigan just seem like this character who just is so hard to hate. I don't know why, but damn it, Vincent Price, why'd you have to be so amazing? God, I miss him right now, because I really would love to see a Great Mouse Detective 2 where they bring back Ratigan just for Vincent Price. Even if it's like only watered down like a smidge, just bring back Vincent Price. I'm totally okay with this. Ratigan is, again, one of the top villains in my list, and honestly, it was going to go to Jafar, but then I thought to myself, Ratigan's the better one. He's kind of a standalone villain that just beats to his own drum, and it works. It's one of those things that is hard to just compare it to any other villain. So, number one is Professor Ratigan, and rest in peace to the late great Vince Price.
Yeah, no, that he's definitely. I didn't like the Great Mouse Detective that much because it was so scary. Like as a kid, when it came out, I just remember being terrified of the bat, and Ratigan was pretty terrifying. Like he's one of those villains that insane. Like he'll try to be like, oh, I am fancy and I'm the mob boss of this area in London, and I need new things from this tinker toy maker type of guy. And then all of a sudden he'll be like, what did you call me? And like his eyes turn insane, and like he starts drooling, and you see these teeth and stuff, and you're like, this guy is crazy. Like this is why he's in charge. Like he didn't want to be called a rat. He wanted to be a mouse like everybody else. Like he's like, I'm a mouse. I'm not a rat. Like, I'm just like you. Except I'm insane and I'm more powerful because I am a rat. And it was just it is an interesting, like he's a very interesting villain, and it's just so dark. Like everything about the Great Mouse Detective is dark. So great choice. I definitely. Like, if there's a movie in Disney that I remember really not enjoying that much because I was afraid of it, not because it's not a good movie, it is The Great Mouse Detective. And I think that was literally one of those that like, when the bat, like, comes out of, like, when the girl's trying to hide, and he just comes out and sticks his head out, and he's like, aah! And you're like, that scared the crap out of me all the time, and I'd have to close my eyes, and then, like, they're like, okay, calm down, he's just a goofy bat, but he wasn't. He was creepy, and his voice was creepy, and, like, that's just one of the creatures that Ratigan, like, tinkers with, and Ratigan himself was also just evil. He has a good song, though, too. Ratigan.
Oh, Ratigan.
Which is great. And they're all getting wasted, by the way, which is hilarious, too. Like, everybody's drinking and getting sloshed. And then, like, somebody calls him, he's the best rat. And you're like, oh, did you say that? And, like, he's like, what did you say? Like, he's the rat, he's the best. And then you just see him going off to the kitty cat, like, kill him.
Gosh, I feel like I need to watch that movie again, just for the pure nostalgia of it again. It's so like, damn good. But all right, so I've revealed my number one. All that's left is you, VicTori Belle. Who is your number one favorite villain in Disney?
Yeah, favorite is a odd way to call it, I think, but I think that he deserves a place as number one, just because, again, kind of like Gaston, he is a very influential character, and kind of is, I think it speaks a lot about the tone of what religion or what a following can do to people.
He's got friends on the other side, right?
Kind of. I chose Judge Claude Frollo from Hunchback of Notre Dame, or Notre Dame, whatever you want to say, however you want to call it. I really enjoyed this movie. It was another one that as a kid you don't really like it that much because Quasimodo is a little scary to look at, and because of Judge Frollo is just awful. Just an awful person, and you don't really know he's that awful because what is pretty controversial is he's tied in with the church, and I'm almost for sure, because it's Notre Dame, I think it's Catholic. I could be awful and just be blaming Catholics for everything, but right, I'm like, I'm pretty sure he's Catholic, and they kind of are ruling France at this time. Like it's the the king, and then it's the church right there, right next to it. So anything you do, the church has some sort of pull with it. And Judge Frollo basically says he speaks through God, and everything he does is religious, and God help me, please help me kill these people and rid the evil from this land. And you're just like, oh, that's not what we thought God was. But it's so true of the time and like what people believed in and what they were allowed to believe in. It's so dark, and I think that some people maybe miss this, but as an adult and as somebody who I enjoy studying like religions and like seeing what religions are and believing and what people believe in, I'm like, holy crap, like this was a dark time in Europe in general when the church ruled all, and you had to pay a toll to the church, and you had to listen to the church, and if you cross somebody of the church, they can literally call you a sinner and kill you on the spot. Like, what? Like, that's kind of what they were doing with the gypsy people. They were like, they don't follow our religion, well, they could just die. And, like, you're like, whoa, like, this is the first act of kind of like a genocide of manipulating people. And Frollo was definitely a part of this. And he didn't understand the role that he was taking when he saved one of the gypsy kids, a monster named Quasimodo. But he knew he had a higher power for it and everything. So he locked this person away, and didn't let him talk or interact with anybody, and just made him feel like a monster. And that manipulation and mental like trauma just goes to show like what the Hunchback of Notre Dame is. And he's just somebody who's very innocent and doesn't understand society, doesn't understand his role in society, and he just really wants to get out there and be present. And he's taken as a monster and a demon, almost like a devil. Like people like are like, oh my gosh, he's a sinner or something. And gypsies come to be like, that's not how things are. That's not, like, no, just because he's creepy looking to you doesn't mean he's evil. And, like, Frollo, like, turns his back on him, which is, like so devastating for Quasimodo at the time. He's like, please, like, he almost calls him, like, father and everything, another, like, deception. And he's like, I'm not going to ruin my reputation to save you. You're ridiculous. And in all honesty, he broke rules to get out there. So, like, Frollo is like, you broke my rules, you're dead to me. And then he has this moment, like, in the movie of him wanting Esmeralda, and that, like, song, I love Hellfire, that is the creepiest, weird song I've ever heard from Disney. He literally talks about wanting temptation and wanting her, and if he can't have her, she will burn in hell and die. And I'm like, what? They wrote a song like this? And they put it in a Disney movie? Like, she literally is told to burn in hell, and it is like the Psalms or whatever of the church in it. And you're like, oh, this is dark and evil, and this man believes that he is doing something for Christ and for his God, and he believes he is doing the right thing, which is another way to like who's right? Is he right, or are the other people right? And you can choose. But most of the time, Disney's trying to tell you that he was wrong and that he's kind of crazy because he gave his whole heart and soul to the Lord, and he believes that he can speak through the Lord, which a lot of people did. But it's just very interesting. I think Hunchback of Notre Dame probably had a little bit of backlash because of how intricate the church was in this movie, and how it's like, well, we're not bad people, but in the time it was pretty crazy.
Yeah, I will also say this, that I know that with a lot of, the villains, they kind of had, like I said before, a deal where, they can be completely calm, completely composed, and then next thing you know, they snap and they're just yelling, they're screaming. With Judge Claude Frollo, it felt like he always had kind of the same tone. Sometimes he would just raise his voice. Other times he wouldn't. That's the weird part, is that he would kind of have this deal where he just... I don't know. It's really weird because I think every now and then, like I said, he would raise his voice, and he's kind of one of those villains that believes that actions speak louder than words. And I remember more of his actions than a lot of, special one-liners or some random things that he might have said throughout the movie. His actions of just, just basically spreading out the gypsies, and he set a windmill on fire, and he's basically trying to burn Esmeralda, or he's just trying to basically, like you said before, he's trying to seduce her. He's trying to basically say, you either choose me or the fire. And, of course, we all know what happens. She spits in his face, and he's just like, all right, I'm going to burn you alive. Bye-bye. Just... Yeah. Oh my gosh. And he's one of those few guys you would rarely expect to see him wield a sword. And this is kind of one of those things where it's kind of like, well, we talked about princes with swords. Yeah, this is a priest carrying a sword. What does this tell you right now? This is kind of like, this is sick and demented. At the same time, it's Judge Claude Frollo, and he's trying to rid the world of sin, and he's doing it by any way possible. God help us, just... absolutely, just a really good pick. Really good pick as number one.
Yeah, our number ones are pretty equal.
Oh my gosh. So much that we've talked about throughout this, and now we're finally done, ladies and gentlemen. I hope that you enjoyed this edition of The Game Changer. Let us know what you guys think. What are some of your favorite villains? Especially in Disney. I know one thing that we definitely want to preface is that we're definitely talking more of maybe the original Disney, or just the Disney brand. Obviously, we know that they acquired Marvel and they acquired Star Wars, but I think we talked a lot, probably your ears off, with Marvel, and especially the villains from there. I mean, I think we've done a few episodes where we talked about villains from that. So it's kind of one of those things where it's let's actually focus on another branch of Disney. The good old days where we actually had villains that were, not in secret. They were actually kind of out there, and you realized, oh, this is the person I'm supposed to boo. This is the person I'm supposed to kind of root against. Or, for most people, it's they're the ones that you kind of want to cheer. It's I kind of want this person to win a little bit. I know in the end the hero's going to win, but I kind of want this person to have a small, seldom victory. And so many of these villains actually have those moments, and it's one of those things where it's wow, they won. It's kind of a shock. What next? And then you finally see the climax, and it reaches the point where it's hey, the heroes won. Well, okay, that's cool. Still kind of wish the villain would have won, but if you wanted to watch that, then you definitely will have to go watch Pirates of the Caribbean. Dead Man. It's not Dead Man. Yeah, Dead Man Chest. That's right. That's where you'll get one Disney movie where it's just oh, hey, the villains won completely. Damn. All right. So, with that being said, I think we could wrap up this edition of The Game Changer. I know we went a little bit over the time than what we normally do, but it was for a good reason, because we had a lot to talk about, especially with villains. So, VicTori Belle, that was an awesome list, and thank you so much for your time and for coming on to share who you think were your top favorite villains.
Thanks. It's always fun.
All right, guys. So you know how to follow VicTori Belle on her Facebook fan page. Also follow her on Twitter. Do the same thing for me and give us a follow on our Facebook fan page. For VicTori Belle, I've been Nate the Effing Great. You've been chilling with the villains here from Disney. And we will talk to you guys in the next episode, which more than likely will take place in Chicago next week. So tune in, you guys. You'll probably tune into something very special. Actually, let me change that. You will tune into something very special. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Poor unfortunate souls in pain, in need. This one longing to be thinner, that one wants to get the girl, and do I help them? Yes, indeed. Those poor unfortunate souls, so sad, so true. They come flocking to my cauldron crying, spells, Ursula, please, and I help them. Yes, I do.
So prepare for a chance of a lifetime. Be prepared for sensational news. A shining new era is tiptoeing nearer.
And where do we feature?
Just listen to teacher. I know it sounds sordid, but you'll be rewarded when at last I am given my dues. And injustice deliciously square. Be prepared. Beata Maria, you know I am a righteous man. Of my virtue I am justly proud. Beata Maria, you know I'm so much purer than the common vulgar, weak, licentious crowd. Then tell me, Maria, why I see her dancing there, why her smoldering eyes still scorch my soul. I feel her, I see her, the sun caught in her raven hair is blazing in me out of all control. Like fire, hellfire, this fire my skin, this burning desire is turning me to sin.
No one's slick as Gaston, no one's quick as Gaston, no one's neck's as incredibly thick as Gaston.
For there's no one in town half as manly, perfect, a pure paragon.
You can ask any Tom, Dick, or Stanley, and they'll tell ya whose team they prefer to be on. No one's been like Gaston, a kingpin like Gaston. No one's got a swell cleft in his chin like Gaston.
As a specimen, yes, I'm intimidating.
My, what a guy, that Gaston! Mother knows best. Listen to your mother. It's a scary world out there. Mother knows best. One way or another, something will go wrong, I swear. Ruffians, thugs, poison ivy, quicksand, cannibals and snakes, the plague. Yes. Also large bugs, men with pointy teeth, and stop, no more. You'll just upset me. Mother's right here. Mother will protect you. Darling, here's what I suggest. Skip the drama, stay with Mama. Mother knows best.
Yes. Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready? Transformation Central. Transformation Central. Transformation Central. Transformation Central. Transmogrification Central. Can you feel it? You're changing, you're changing, you're changing, alright. I hope you're satisfied. But if you ain't, don't blame me. You can blame my friends on the other side. But you got what you wanted.
But you lost what you had. So Ali turns out to be merely Aladdin. Just a con, need I go on? Take it from me.
his personality flaws give me adequate cause
to send him packing on a one-way trip so his prospects take a terminal dip.
His assets frozen,
The venue chosen